Well, let me just ask you this about Ty Lue. Obviously it ended kind of awkwardly here when he ended. Would that part of it prevent him from coming back?
I don't think no. Ty's not coming back.
Okay, but is it because of that or just because he's not?
Number one, I think he's happy in L.A.
Right.
And number two, I think that they mended things, but it was. I don't know if it really got out how badly it ended with him here. It was bad. It was ugly, and I think time has passed and wounds have mended a little bit, and I think the parties involved sort of talked it out, but Ty's not coming back.
So let's look at some. You had a list yesterday.
Yeah,
Mike.
we got some candidates. Let me do a read real quick, and we'll
go
get
ahead.
into some candidates. We'll break down the pros and cons of each as we prepare for the next chapter of Cavs coaching saga. A quick reminder, if you want to see whoever the new head coach is of the Cavaliers next season, you better be buying your tickets on the Game Time app. There's no better way or easier place to find tickets than Game Time, which is now an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA. They have priority last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy shows, theaters, whatever you want. They have flash deals, zone deals, all in pricing, so you get to see the total view from your seat and the total price in your cart without those surprise checkout fees. Their lowest price guarantee will credit you 110% of the difference if you can find a cheaper ticket online. Plus, their ticket coverage makes sure you have the most flexible customer service policy in the entire online ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app now, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So we went through some of these yesterday, Bull, and we quickly mentioned it. And I said didn't want to dive into the potential replacements for JB Bickerstaff until he was fired, and now that is officially official. So let's run down a list. These are guys I think make sense for what the Cavs are looking for.
Yeah.
These are names that have now been associated to the Cavs. There's a few others that we'll mention, but at least 6 names to keep an eye on. And then I'll mention 1 or 2 more after.
Yeah.
Goes like this. Kenny Atkinson, who Adrian Wojnarowski said was the first guy they mentioned as a guy to watch to replace JB Bickerstaff. Chris Quinn, who has been on Spoelstra's bench with the Heat for a decade now, played in Cleveland, could be a name to watch. James Borrego, who had the Charlotte Hornets head coaching job from 2018 to 2022. He's a Spurs assistant. He's been bounced around the league, a 2-time champion with the Spurs. Sam Cassell, Dave Joerger, and Johnny Dawkins, 3 other candidates to keep an eye on. We also have heard Micah Nori, the assistant from Minnesota, who's filling in for Chris Finch, as another person to watch, just like Dave Adelman, the top assistant in Denver. Just a couple names. I'll save my thoughts for the end, but Jason, any of these ones
Before you jump into these candidates, because yesterday I mentioned Atkinson too, and I mentioned another candidate who I know some people are going to roll their eyes, and it's
JJ Redick?
No, and it's probably not going to happen. But the reality is that nobody on that list has anywhere close to the resume that Becky Hammon does. She was an assistant with San Antonio, obviously, part of a great organization.
Yeah.
She's won consecutive championships in the WNBA. She was a magnificent player. She won everything. And I don't know who's going to be the first team to do it because teams are generally gutless, and the sex of the coach should be irrelevant. Sexism within the players, obviously, we talk about the players. Are they going to respect the women's coach? Some young men are just not mature enough that they would, they're going to allow their biases to get in the way. So I don't know that she's ever going to get a real serious chance, but in my opinion, there's nobody more qualified than her, but I don't know that she's going to get a real opportunity.
I have, and like Shams and I and Joe and I have talked about this at length about candidates and names that we've heard. That name has not come up at all. But the Cavs did hire Lindsey Gottlieb as an assistant a few years ago, and I think they are the progressive type of organization. If they felt she was the best candidate, I don't think they'd have any qualms in hiring her. I mean that.
Right.
But I have not heard her name to this point. Doesn't mean it can't happen.
Yeah, sure.
Just haven't heard it come up.
So Atkinson seems to be coming up.
The two names that I would circle on that are Kenny Atkinson and Borrego, and just file this away in the back of your head. Both of them are rep by CAA, which reps Donovan Mitchell.
So, and now Atkinson took an awful
The Nets were
team.
a horrible spot.
That was the year that Kyrie.
Mike probably remembers when he got fired. When he took over, they were a wreck. They had no picks. They had no hope. They had no future. Like, they were as low as you can go.
But wasn't that the year that the Cavs had their pick because of the Kyrie trade?
Yeah.
And we all assumed they would be one of the top, and they ended up being, like, very competitive.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I did not like that trade at all, was because the Nets had no reason to tank, and they wound up being better. He did a nice job.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't remember right now all the specifics of why he was fired and when he was fired.
I could give you real quick.
Yeah.
He is in a similar situation to JB Bickerstaff was when he came to Cleveland. He took over an absolute mess.
Yes.
A super young team. They played extremely hard for Kenny Atkinson. As soon as KD and Kyrie came in, they said, we don't like this guy. We want Steve Nash.
There you go.
Yeah, and he obviously coached Jared Allen. He coached Karis LeVert with the Nets. I don't know what their relationship was, so I don't know if that matters. And, you know, it sounds like Jared Allen's not going to be here next year.
Is
so
Karis LeVert out the contract for next season?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So what do you know? What do you hear? What is it about, besides the obvious of what he did with the Nets, what do you hear about Atkinson?
Well, here's what's interesting about this whole thing is Dan, before he had his health issues, hated retread coaches. Right. Never wanted to hire a retread.
Right.
And that's how you wind up with John Beilein and David Blatt. Is because he wanted to outsmart everybody.
Right.
And think outside the box. Now, Byron Scott was a retread, but he wanted Tom Izzo. And I'm going somewhere with this, so just hang with me. So Tom Izzo is who he wanted to replace Mike Brown when Mike Brown was fired the first time. And he went hard after Tom. And Tom really considered it. Ultimately said, no, I'm staying where I am. And then Dan turned to his front office and said, go get the best guy. And so they went and got Byron Scott. So Dan had his guy that he wanted, pursued him aggressively, couldn't get him, pivoted and said, go get the best guy you can. And that's how they wound up with Byron Scott. And Byron was not a great coach, but he was exactly what they needed at that time. I thought Byron did a tremendous job that first year or two after LeBron to carry them through the mess and muck that they had to go through. And then if you fast forward, so then the David Blatt was all Dan. Nobody thought he was going to get that job.
Right.
Like, I remember, I've mentioned this before, he tells Steve Kerr, hey, I got an opportunity, because remember, Blatt was supposed to be Steve's top assistant in Golden State and learn the league. And he told Steve, I got an opportunity to interview, and Steve's like, yeah, go for it. Like, it's a good opportunity for you. Go get some experience. And then David called him back and said, hey, I'm getting the job. And Steve was like, what? Really? Okay, well, congratulations. Yeah. And that was all. But so they hire Ty Lue as sort of the axe and hose guy to come in and put out the fire when David Blatt burns the building down, which he more or less did. And then, but that was a Dan hire. Yeah. And now here you go again, you fire Ty.
Yeah.
And if you look at the list of candidates that the Cavs front office was looking at, it was all young, up and coming. Jamal Mosley was on that list. I think Jordy Fernandez may have been on that list. Yeah. And then they go and hire John Beilein. And you're like, well, that doesn't fit with what they had been looking at. Well, that was Dan again. And the Cavs go, well, we got to get somebody. We got to get an axe and a hose in here again to clean up the. So then you go and you get JB.
Right.
So that was all before he had his health problems. So honestly, I don't know now how this is going to go. If Dan Hurley is the next coach of the Cavs, Dan's back.
That was G. Bush's guy yesterday.
I tell you, G. Bush wanted
that would be a Dan move all the way. Like, that's a Dan move because he never liked retread coaches.
Yeah.
He always wanted to think outside the box. He always wanted to go get and like, he swings big.
Yeah.
He swings big.
But the thing
doesn't always connect, but he swings big.
We're going to butcher this, aren't we?
What's that?
They're going to butcher this, aren't they?
Well, not necessarily, because again, I don't think there are a lot of coaches out there who are retreads of retreads of retreads.
Why does it seem like we gotta get a new coach, fire him, and then get?
Well, hopefully that won't be the case.
That's been the trend.
It has been. Hopefully that will change. The thing about retread coaches is they have that experience and they can build on that.
Yes,
so and it doesn't always mean they're going to be better next time around.
Now that's why I don't think it's not fair to necessarily dismiss a guy as a retread because he didn't work out elsewhere, because of what we just talked about. Every young coach makes mistakes and learns from that and gets better at it. I had a great conversation with Mike Brown about that, he wasn't very well liked in Cleveland when he was here. Players didn't like him. They didn't like him in L.A. either. But he went to Golden State. He learned from it, changed some things, and now he's doing a great job in Sacramento. So you got to give guys a chance to evolve. And could Atkinson be that? Could Borrego be that? Neither one of those names excite me to where I'm pounding the table saying you got to go get that guy. Chris Quinn is the type of guy. Chris is an intriguing candidate to me. He was
Columbus, Ohio.
He was here briefly at the end of his career, of his playing career. He's in that Heat culture now. He's being groomed as a Miami assistant and has certainly learned how to do things the right way.
Yeah.
So if you want to go the really young route, which I don't know that they want to do, this is a team ready to. This is a good job. That needs to be said too.
Yeah.
This is an attractive job for candidates right now. This is not a bad job. So it's going to elicit a lot of attention. Do you want to entrust that with a guy who's never been a head coach before? It worked great in Golden State with Steve Kerr. Yeah. That team exploded. Kind of a similar situation to this. Steve Kerr came in and they exploded in a good way.
Well, Mark Jackson laid down the foundation.
That's what I'm saying.
Which is very similar to what we got here. JB kind of laid the foundation.
That's what I'm saying.
You just need somebody to take it.
Mike wanted to jump in. Go ahead.
One point on retread coaches too, especially guys who get a chance when they're younger and don't have the success. I'll use Borrego for an example. He's not the only one, but Borrego is a perfect example. He was a hot young assistant. Charlotte scoops him up. That Charlotte roster was horrific all 4 years he was there. His career record is not impressive, 148 and 183 in 4 seasons with Charlotte. There's maybe 1 or 2 coaches in the world, and that may even be too many. I'm not even sure Spo could figure out a way to get the roster led by LaMelo Ball to be a 500 playoff level team. So to look at his resume and say, well, he'd have success in Charlotte doesn't mean he can't have success elsewhere. I just think that's unfair because a lot of these young head coaches who get their first head coaching gig get it with a team in a complete rebuild mode. And unless you strike gold in the lottery and get an Anthony Edwards with the first overall pick or get a Wemby or someone like that, you're going to have a severely undermanned roster. So I'm not as against retread coaches at some others because I think there's a lot more context that goes into why they didn't succeed the first time than just looking at the big picture and saying, well, he wasn't very good in Charlotte. He can't be good here.
To that point, if I'm another organization, I'd bring JB Bickerstaff in.
I was just going to say, if I'm the Washington Wizards, why would you not hire
He'd actually
JB?
be perfect in Washington.
Right? Another team to build up. But the thing about Quinn that's interesting, the most interesting thing, of course, is what Jason said, that he's in that Miami organization. And Miami's got the best coach in the NBA.
Yes.
So even though he doesn't have experience, he's been with Miami since when?
2014.
Miami
is 10th season with Spo.
Miami is the crown jewel organization.
Exactly.
As far as I'm concerned.
And this guy's his lead assistant, right?
San Antonio's really good too.
Yeah.
But Miami, just the way that they run things and the way they do things, in my opinion, I think Miami's the best.
Why has he not gotten an opportunity yet, you think?
He will.
No, but he's been there 10 years.
Yeah, but he's still,
He's still young in the coaching.
Yeah, JB was an assistant for, I think, 12 or 13 years.
It seems like he seems like a really smart hire because he's been he's been an assistant for a decade for the best coach in the NBA, I think.
Yeah. But he wasn't like JJ Redick had a pretty decorated career.
Right, sure.
Chris Quinn.
Why does that matter?
It matters.
You would take JJ over Chris?
No.
Quinn?
I'm just
You
saying
mean it matters in terms of the relationship with the players?
Owners make these calls.
Oh, I see.
And owners get
But
blinded
it
by.
shouldn't matter.
Well, of course it does. So I just think that plays a little bit of a role in it that he didn't have this illustrious career that some of the other guys did. He probably maybe was approached and he's waiting for the right situation. I don't know. I know Chris a little bit. I don't know him extremely well, but good guy. I enjoyed him when he was here as a player at the end of his career.
No, his dad. His dad is on the Buckeye. He runs the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
So he's from Columbus, Ohio.
Is his name Bob? Is his dad Bob?
No, his dad's name's Chris.
Yeah. You would think if you were him, you'd want to take this job. Your home state.
This is a good job.
It's a team that can win.
This is a good job.
Yeah.
It will attract a lot of attention.
Go ahead, Mike.
One thing on Chris Quinn too, I think I mentioned this briefly yesterday, but he was instrumental in Miami turning Bam Adebayo from a guy who had no offensive game coming out of Kentucky to one of the focal points of their offense and specifically a playmaking role, which, as we all look at this Cavs roster, I think we all have the same vision of Evan Mobley potentially transitioning from a back-to-the-basket traditional power forward to more playmaking one-out five. So he could fit that sense, too, from what he did with Bam to what he can do with that.
By the way, who is the best coach in the NBA that was an excellent player. I mean, Steve Kerr was a bench player, nice player.
He's a good player. Best coach who was
Jason Kidd.
Jason, that's the right answer.
Yeah.
That's the right answer. And Jason Kidd's a really good head coach.
Yeah, he is.
He's up 1-0.
But he's
right
bounced
now.
around a couple times,
Spoelstra
too.
didn't play in the NBA, right?
No.
Was his first
neither
job
did
the
Popovich.
Bucks? Jason
J.
Kidd?
Kidd?
Because he the one that got Giannis to be like.
No, he was a
Nets.
Nets coach
Nets.
first.
Oh.
Yeah.
Remember he spilled the drink on the court? He had to play around because they were
Wait,
out of timeout.
whoa! I didn't. Whoa! He did what?
He was taking a drink and he had his player run into him on the court because I believe they were out of timeouts.
He didn't have any timeouts, yeah.
So he said, "Hey, bump into me." so he spilled his drink on the court. So they had to stop the game to wipe it up. I mean, that's
smart.
Yeah.
think smarter, not harder. Work smarter, not harder.
Jason, a couple other names that have been mentioned.
Funny.
Nori from Minnesota, Adelman from Denver. Other than watching them throughout the playoffs, I don't necessarily have any deeper insights into what they bring.
Yeah.
Do you know much about Nori or Adelman in particular?
No, not really. Their names haven't really come up. I've been asked about Terry Stotts a couple times by a couple different people. That's another one. Retread, who's been around for a while, good offensive coach. Have not heard his name, though, come up in this. Jaeger is an interesting one because he was here already.
Yep.
And that's the one I was sort of circling. If they fired JB during the season, I thought he would get the job. And then, curiously, he left when Doc got the job in Milwaukee, and it became sort of evident that he wasn't
Right.
going to be needed here, and that he was just an advisory role here. And then he left for Milwaukee when Doc took over the Bucks.
And he was with Doc in Philly beforehand.
Yes.
So
yes, good
it's
point.
worth mentioning.
Yeah,
I think
and he had some health issues. He left because he was fighting cancer, and I believe he's all clear now, and that's why
He's all clear.
I've heard a lot of good things about him, just in terms of good coach. He's had a couple stints. He was in Memphis. He was in Sacramento, so he's a retread.
Yeah.
But
I think the bottom line on this is, and I'm in this boat too. Be careful what you wish for, because no matter who the Cavs hire, there's no way you're going to be able to say with any kind of certainty that they have a better coach than they previously had.
yeah, you just don't know right now.
They
you can't say
might,
that.
and we
They
hope
might.
they get it right,
Yeah.
but there's no way you're going to know that going in.
I would have more faith in the front office making the choice than Dan, and I hope the front office gets to make the
Okay?
decision.
You have faith in Kobe.
I have more faith in the front office than Dan's over.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask about this, Jason. A report from James Ham, an NBA insider in Sacramento, said the Kings ownership group is unhappy with Mike Brown. Is there any chance he can make a comeback?
Third time.
Well, number one, they're idiots.
Yeah.
They're idiots. Like, he's done an amazing job in Sacramento,
They were a useless franchise forever.
and they will be again if they.
Yeah.
I don't think that they would move on from him. I did see that. Number two, Mike will never come back here.
Not a third time.
Mike will not come back.
He's done.
LeBron's
You fire him twice, like you're out.
They got
That's it.
LeBron contemplating it.
Mike
Allegedly.
Brown, Mike Brown ain't coming back.
All right, Mike.
And last but not least,
Yeah.
last question, and Brad's going to join us in a few minutes here
Yeah.
to give us his thoughts on the whole Cavs, JB Bickerstaff situation. But when you look big picture, take names out of the equation. What do you want the next head coach of the Cavs to be? Offensive-minded, young, offensive-minded guy who's had experience. Like, each will go around. Tyvus will start with you and we'll end with you, Bull. What attributes and characteristics do you want the next head coach of the Cavs to
Well, I
have?
think that defensively, I think that JB, like I said, he's done a great job of laying the foundation, and they've seen some success with it. So I don't need somebody that's going to be defensive-minded first. I need somebody with some offensive sense. I think that the biggest thing is that offensively we get to times where it's just stand around and watch Donovan. Like, I don't want to see that no more. I want to see some motions. I want to see some sets. I want to see some stuff moving. So I think you got to get an offensive-minded coach in that way, and he's got to be a guy that's got to be able to develop somebody. So, like Chris Quinn developing Bam, okay, you got the same situation here with Evan. If he can get Evan to be something like Bam, like that ultimately makes our team better. So, offensive-minded guy that can develop young talent really well, and I would like some playoff experience. That's my things.
Anytime you make a change, the pendulum always swings wildly the other way.
Yeah.
So you've got this defensive guy in JB. It's going to swing now to an offensive-minded guy. I would want somebody who can unlock Evan Mobley. Like someone who can prioritize his development on the offensive end. Defensively, he's fantastic. Someone, and I don't know who that someone is, but whoever can get Evan to fulfill his potential on the offensive side, because they have a decision to make on him this summer as well. in terms of a contract. And I think I know which way it's going to go. So whoever they feel like, because if you can unlock Evan and you can get him to meet his offensive potential, that will take this team up a level or two. If you can keep Donovan, unlock Evan, you have to figure out what you're doing with Darius and Jarrett.
Yeah.
But that will elevate this entire organization.
Obviously, that's a huge key. You're going to want an offensive guy, I get it, or at least a head coach.
But you also don't want to obliterate the principles that you've established on the defensive side. So it's hard.
And so maybe the answer is you talked about JB. One of the complaints is he's got to be in control of everything. Well, maybe you have a head coach that is able to put aside his ego and say, hey, I'm the head coach, and I got this offensive guru with me here, and he's going to get the best out of Evan Mobley. But most importantly, I think in the NBA, it seems to me, Jason, that you have to find, and this is hard, probably, you have to find a head coach that will stand up to the best players on the team, but still get those guys to respect him. Right? You can't be a kiss ass to the superstar.
And that's what Ty did. That was Ty with LeBron. Oh, he stood up to like.
Exactly. Oh, I think you said he was a kiss ass. So I was like, no,
he gave them rope. It's exactly what you're talking about. He gave them plenty of rope and leash. We've talked about it multiple times. They shut down the season, went and got drunk for 2 days in Napa. But then when he had to rein them in and pull them in, he was in LeBron's face at halftime of Game 7 saying, I need more out of you.
That's right. And that's hard to find that balance.
It is.
Right? But that's ultimately what every team is looking for.
Yeah.
Because if you just kiss your superstars, if the next coach is like, well, JB got fired because Donovan didn't like him, so I'm going to kiss his ass, well, that's not going to work.
No.
So I think, who that person is, I don't know, but you got to find that guy.
I have learned, and I was, to be honest, unaware of this until some of my friends started getting higher and higher in the NBA coaching ranks. It's not just a head coach anymore. Like, these staffs are intricate. There are offensive coordinators. There are defensive coordinators, the player development guys, JB staff. There was like 35 guys on the Cavs staff this year. It was insane. Whoever they hire as the head coach, I think has to be a guy that they identify as the number one guy who can get the most out of the guys on the roster. Philosophy, offensively and defensively, be damned, because you could hire an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator. It has to be a guy the players relate to, who they can wring out the most talent from the potential on this roster. And then you can fill out the rest of your staff with an offensive genius and a defensive genius. But it's more like a football staff. And Jason, if I'm wrong, please tell me if I'm missing the nail on this one. But these staffs are deep, and they have different categorized and specialties within the staff, that the head coach is more – not a figurehead. I'm not taking away what they do. They're obviously a very, very important part. But there are certain factions of a staff that are offensive-minded. There are certain factions of staffs that are defense-minded. You have an out-of-bounds timeout play underneath the basket, specialty guys. It's more of a CEO than it is a specific coach now. So I'm less worried about exactly what a head coach can do, but how well he can assemble an overall staff.
It's so funny we talk so much about, not just us, but in general, people that cover sports, you talk so much about the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. Like, we know most of the OCs and DCs in the NFL, but in basketball, it doesn't really get talked about that same way.
No. In fact, the first time I really heard it, I don't know if it was, I'll go back to the Mike Brown example again in Sacramento. Jordy was his offensive coordinator.
Who just got hired to be the Nets head coach, by the way.
Yeah, and then he had another, I forget who was his defensive guy, even though Mike is a defensive genius. He had another guy on his staff who was sort of the defensive guy. Mike Longobardi, when Ty was here, Mike Longobardi was the defensive coach.
Right, yeah.
But then when it got to the postseason, Ty took that over and started really digging in on what they were doing defensively. He trusted Mike to do it during the regular season, and then Ty took it over during the postseason.
Thibodeau was the defensive coordinator for Doc Rivers.
Yes, that's right.
Like, that might be the most famous example
You're right.
of that. But
I forgot about that. Yep.
Doc's,
I thought it was, what's his name? Adam Sandler's character. What was his name?
In Hustle?
In Hustle, yeah.
Well, he was a scout.
No, but he was becoming an assistant coach. That's part of the movie.
At the end, he became a coach.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I thought you meant
Sonny,
like who
what
Adam
was his name?
Sandler's actually
Sonny
playing. Not sure.
Finkelstein?
We're going to welcome in Brad in a
Yeah,
second.
yeah,
Let me get a
something
read in.
like that.
Let me get a read in real quick so when Brad hops on, we'll get him right in
All
here.
right.
And today's a reminder that today's show is sponsored by Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. So let's get straight to the point. If you want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising cost of inflation, to pay off your debts or your mortgage, pretty much anything standing in your way, well, Yahoo Finance is here to help. You can get access to the news, data, tools that you need in order to reach that financial freedom you crave. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They're the #1 finance destination, producing holistic looks at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. So make sure you head over to yahoofinance.com to find all of this for a comprehensive financial news and analysis. Visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination. Once again, that is yahoofinance.com.